am not. We go 1-2 last night. I mean, look, we're not getting reverse swept. That's the best thing possible. But, I mean, I have to be so far out. I can't even be in screen. I'm so cold compared to this red-hot basketball they have for me. It's not even red, too. It's got a little orange, a little tint to it. You know, here's the best part about it. If you're new to DraftKings, I'm going to turn $5 into $200 for you, like, instantly. So you know that's good, at least. Hey, it's, what, Thursday, Friday into Saturday, right? So we're going to win a 3-leg NBA parlay. And look, we've been ahead of the game for the most part this week. It sucks to have a down night like that. Let's head on over to DraftKings. You're going to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe before I hit the first play, right? Please. That's all I really ask. Tonight's going to be about overreaction. And I think there's going to be one in both ways, either way, when you look at it as far as loss and return. The Indiana Pacers. Now, this was at 2.5. It's dipping to 2. This was at 120. It's now dipping to 115. This is what we're doing. I get it. You don't have your leading scorer in Tyrese Halliburton out there. It's a troubling spot right now for any team who has relied upon a guy like Halliburton to not have him in the fold tonight against the Hawks. We also know the Hawks like to score. We also know tough one there, right, against the Bucks. So they come back. And look, Atlanta, though, not what they've been in recent years by any means. So figuring out injury, figuring out that new backcourt, figuring out everything has not been easy, minus Clint Capella, clearly. And that's what I mean by figuring out injury. But they won 3 of 10. And I don't know if Atlanta is necessarily good enough to step in and just outscore. And I know they do this a lot, but in this case, just outscore a Pacers team who the overreaction is like, oh my God, they're going to forget how to score because they don't have Halliburton. We've seen times in which if it's Buddy Hield or anybody else, Nembhard, other people on this team have been able to shoulder a load with Halliburton out there struggling, or he doesn't play 48 minutes a night. So let's look at this just big picture. You've got a Pacers team that's just a little bit better right now than the Hawks. They're at home, and they're missing a key cog. Yet they've still been able to put together a nice stretch of winning basketball, and Halliburton gone hurts their scoring, but they still have some real.
As good as I'll feel doing a show with Adam.
Yeah, understandable.
You're what?
I said that's understandable.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you understand and you have a good awareness of who you are. That's great.
Yeah.
At least you showed up for today's strategy show.
What'd you say?
At least you showed up for our strategy show together today.
Yeah, that is true.
Nice of you. And then what is going on, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show presented by Prize Picks. I'm Eric Lindquist, excited to be talking through a 9-gamer here on this lovely Friday. As we get started, hit that like button because I'm up here at the butt crack of dawn, getting ready to rock. Very excited, though, about this slate. I think it's a pretty good one we have on hand. Also, I'm going to be playing golf in about 3 hours, so I'm in a good mood. I think Adam Scherer's in a pretty good mood, too. He thinks it's Christmas there. He's rocking the DraftKings Christmas sweater. It usually keys me in that he had a fun night last night and was like, here's the closest available thing, or he hasn't done laundry since 1994. I'm not sure which. Adam, how you doing, my dude?
I didn't go out last night, if that answers your question. So, yeah, no, doing well. But that is actually the reason. Like, I just walked out of my office, and the first thing I saw was the Christmas sweater because I hadn't hung it up yet. It was just sitting on the back of my couch. So, yeah, that'll work for today. Well,
I'm just happy to see you today because I think last time you and I were scheduled to do an NBA strategy show, this is my second one all year long because, again, getting up at 5:30 a.m. out here, not my favorite thing on planet Earth, but you know what? I'll do it for the people. And I'll do it also to let Greg Ehrenberg have a fun night out, be able to go kick it at the Brooklyn Nets and Boston Celtics game. Looked like an awesome time. Glad my dude was able to kick it there. But the Devil went down to Georgia last time, so that would be you.
Yeah.
How was it?
It was fun. I loved it. I want to go back.
Yeah, you should. The ladies are okay.
Yeah. The whole Yeah, it's great. I love it.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Happy parole day. Come on now. I got jury duty 2 days ago. I got out of it. Go team. That was fun. That was fun stuff. You could have been the lawyer if you had done things differently as well. But I think you did it correctly here, going to DraftKings.com and stealing all of their apparel. And
yeah, I don't have to pay for clothes anymore. So
it's a plus. I would hope not when you're paying $1 million a rake a year. That would be a pretty large disservice and stupid decision by them. But I think you're doing all right for yourself, my dude. We got Mike Lawrence behind the virtual glass here today. Looking forward to this one. We're going to be flying. We got 9 games. Pretty clear-cut spots here. Anything you want to talk about before we dig into the slate? Looks pretty good to me, though.
No, we can just, I think, get going.
Yeah, cool. Let's party. Yeah. Once again, hit that like button. Goes a long way for us on this video. Makes me look cool because, again, I don't do strategy shows. So if you really want to stick it to Greg and to Josh, which seems like a fun thing to do, have this be a very, very liked video. But let's start it off with the Knicks -4.5 at Washington, 221.5. This opened closer to 2.5 the other day. That was yesterday. I do a betting video every single night the night before. So I was breaking this down a little bit. We still have Bradley Beal out on the Washington side. But let's start here with the Knicks. RJ Barrett back in town. That makes this team very unappealing without, the obvious ceilings that you get from Randall and Brunson. Anything you like at all from this team?
I'm still interested in the main pieces. Basically all the starters except for Grimes, I think, are at least reasonable plays because they play so many minutes. They had said RJ Barrett would not be limited in his first game back, and he wasn't. He played 41 minutes in that game. Yeah, you got another 39 from Julius Randle. We did get Obi Toppin back in the rotation, and he is still just simply backing up Julius Randle. That is something to keep an eye on because Randle's been playing really well, so there is some chance that you just get 8 to 9 minutes a night from Obi Toppin, but it does make Randle a little bit riskier. Like when Toppin was out, you just knew that you were getting 40 minutes from Julius Randle every single night. Now it comes down to how many minutes are they going to give Toppin? That was hurting Randle earlier in the year where he was playing 33, 34 minutes because Toppin was getting his 14 and 15. So that is something to keep an eye on. But for now, I would still expect around 38 minutes from Randle. That's what we saw last game. But certainly makes him a little bit riskier. Mitchell Robinson's been playing a ton, though. He played another 37.5 minutes last game. Josh and I had talked about it before. He's just consistently playing north of 30 minutes here. And it makes him really scary to project because on the one hand, it's Mitchell Robinson, and we've gotten a couple seasons of being accustomed to him being in foul trouble every other game. But then now he's just playing huge minutes, and he's still not that expensive. He's 5,600 in a good spot. So I am certainly interested in him just based on his recent playing time. Jalen Brunson plays a ton of minutes with or without Barrett, played 42 last game. So even with Barrett back, I don't think it has much of an impact on, Randall, Robinson, Brunson, because they play so many minutes. They lose a little bit in terms of usage because Barrett is a relatively high usage guy, certainly higher than Emmanuel Quickly when Quickly's playing with the starting unit. So that's, a little bit of a drawback, but I still think that they're all viable here just based on playing time.
Do you remember when Isaiah Hartenstein from the absolute top ropes at 0.5% ownership was in the winning lineup in the $15 playing 40 minutes on opening night?
Yeah, I remember when he played minutes, yeah.
And now he doesn't. That's wild. But anyway, it's another tilting thing where it's just some people are from the future, but Mitchell Robinson, we know he can get there. Stocks, blocks. Life is pretty good when you have Mitchell Robinson playing a bazillion minutes because it seems as though the ceiling is pronounced there. The guy averages almost 2 blocks a game. So stay out of foul trouble. He's going to stand out 5,600, getting to a little bit there. But overall, it's just a team that when you get RJ Barrett back is going to take a lot of that ceiling off the top. But we go over to this Washington side. A lot of question marks still hanging in the balance. Kristaps Porzingis, Daniel Gafford, Monty Morris. A lot of pieces all at the center position. Are we running it back? Here with Taj Gibson, Chalk?
I would rather not, but obviously for one, this depends on the status of Gafford and Porzingis. Yes. They're both questionable right now. If they're both out, I assume he's going to start, and he is not listed in our projection, so I don't know what his price is. He is. Oh, I just X'd out. He's 3,500. I probably wouldn't play much of him, but hopefully one or both of Gafford or Porzingis are back anyway.
That would be nice. That would be nice. And if they're not, then we just kind of run it back and Denny Avdia goes for 20 rebounds again, right?
Yeah, that was crazy. Did play 35 minutes. Like if those guys are out, I mean, this is just kind of a difficult team to talk about right now. Because if they're in, I don't think there's much at all that looks appealing. Porzingis is up to 10K. Kuzma is up to 8,700. I don't really like much of anything if those guys are in. Gafford would probably be the most appealing piece if he's starting at center. But if you take out Gafford and Porzingis, then it does open up a bunch of minutes again for Denny Avdia at 5,100. You get a little bit of increased production for Monte Morris at 4,900. You get a ton of minutes, most likely for Corey Kispert, although he did only play 25 last game. We normally get more than that. So it would open up a lot. One other thing rotation-wise that was interesting last game, they did actually play DeLon Wright alongside Monte Morris. They hadn't been doing that. I don't expect that would happen if Gafford and Porzingis are in, but it is an interesting note if they're out. The closing lineup was Morris, Wright, Kuzma, Avdia, and Gibson. Wright is really, really inexpensive. He's 3,400. So if those guys are out, I think you can maybe give him a couple of extra minutes as well.
If you get Monty Morris out, Jordan Goodwin at a flat 3K, is that somewhat appealing to you?
Oh yeah, I totally missed Morris was even questionable, but yeah, for sure. Goodwin's a pretty good point per minute guy. He'd probably be one of the most popular guys on the slate. Will Barton would probably play minutes as well. Don't know how many. He played 8 in the first half last game, then went right back to his spot on the bench. But yeah, if Morris is out, Goodwin is going to end up looking fantastic.
Yeah, flat 3K. Just shout out to him because he would become a jam. And the last guy I want to ask you about, because again, we could have value here. We could also not have value here. And one guy that was assumed to be value and only played 20 minutes last time out was Rui Hachimura. What do you make of that rotation?
If those guys are out, I would still project him around 26 minutes. Okay. Like you said, he only played 20 last game. He did play about 14 in the first half. He just didn't play a lot in the second half. They went to Anthony Gill before they went to him. Then Jordan Goodwin played a full rotation as opposed to the 4 minutes he had played in the first half. So I don't know what really the reason was, but we have typically seen the minutes be there for Rui when guys are out. So, again, like he's a bench guy on a team that has a lot of sort of interchangeable pieces. He's going to be risky, and he is up to 5K now. But if Porzingis and Gafford are out, I would still expect around 26 minutes to be there. I don't think it makes him look that great at 5K either way, though. Yeah,
I think I'm with you. I didn't like the chalk necessarily last time, and I kind of pointed to 28 and 32 minutes. I thought he was a serviceable play and didn't really know what to make of it. I didn't expect 20 minutes from that, but we saw 2 massive blowouts where he really saw his ceiling, saw a bump in usage, got up to 28 and 32 minutes, and that being the Phoenix and Milwaukee game on December 28th, January 1st there. Just an influx of minutes in games that they were up by 20 plus, and he ended up being able to pseudo close to a certain extent there. So I'm not sure. It was just really weird to see Anthony Gill play as much as he did there. Wanted to at least point that out.
They love Anthony Gill.
Why?
Like it's like they love him in a weird way where like they know he's not good enough to actually be in the rotation, but then every single time they're shorthanded, they're just like, oh, we like this guy's defense. And he just ends up being out there for 20 whatever minutes.
It's like the Minnesota Timberwolves playing Nathan Knight over Luka Garza. Like, what are you doing here?
Not really like that, but
okay, you know what I mean.
You can get your.
I'm just saying, my fandom, your fandom, backup center, basically that I want to see play and actually score and do things, as opposed to some nothing that's just running around doing wind sprints, trying hard.
Yeah.
So kind of similar.
Yeah, Gill actually had a game too, which was very weird.
I didn't like it at all from the top rope. Anything else from this game for you?
No, just a lot of question marks here.
A lot of question marks. Revisit, deeper dive, live before lock. You know what to do, folks. Let's go to Atlanta, Indiana here in this next one, and lots to discuss here. From the Atlanta side, pretty clear cut. We still have Clint Capella out. We'll talk about them in a second, but I think you have to start this game off discussing Tyrese Halliburton, who will be out here for the foreseeable future. I'm very, very fascinated to see what happens with Andrew Nembhard here, because I really like this piece. He's been in the starting rotation, and there's been a couple of spots where he's gone and just nuked slates when you didn't have Tyrese Halliburton. Now, that all being said, I was very surprised going to Wowie and seeing that his usage wasn't necessarily what I expected it to be in minutes with Tyrese Halliburton off the floor this season. Maybe it's just me, where Golden State, with the bias in the back of my mind, is just kind of sitting there. But what do you make of Andrew Nembhard chalk today?
Yeah, so one thing to keep in mind with that Golden State game where Nembhard went crazy is that TJ McConnell was out. So he was playing without Halliburton and without McConnell. This year, when McConnell is on the floor and Halliburton is off, Nembhard's played 161 minutes. He's averaged 2/3 of a fantasy point per minute, 11.8% usage rate, 16.8% assist percentage. Overall this year, without Halliburton on the floor, he's averaged 0.91 DraftKings points per minute, 16.8 or 16.4% usage, 27.5% assist percentage. But again, a lot of that is from McConnell not being out there. So that does, I think, play a big role here. If when TJ McConnell is on the floor, Nembhard basically just still operates in that same role where he doesn't have the ball in his hands and he's not really shooting it either. So there's not a lot of fantasy production. Where the increased fantasy production should come from today is the minutes. I assume you're going to have Nembhard on the floor when McConnell is not. That is where you should get some increased production, but that is an actual concern for me that, McConnell being out there, certainly Nembhard's going to look better than if Halliburton were in, but McConnell being on the floor kind of has the same impact on Nembhard that Halliburton does.
I'm so with you. I'm glad that you kind of noticed the same things because I felt a little bit uncomfortable looking at it last night because I just expected you take Tyrese Halliburton off the floor and you were going to get some kind of a nuked usage rate from Nembhard. He's going to look great. And it was just a little bit of that bias because I played a lot when he was without Tyrese Halliburton in that Golden State game. That worked out very nicely. But 16.4% usage, everything else that you just said, 0.9 fantasy points per minute. You don't have TJ McConnell in that game, and now you do. He's the better fantasy producer overall under all circumstances. I think, for me, it's going to be a lot of TJ McConnell. And then I want to know what you think about Benedict Mathurin, too, because he's the guy who sees the highest usage rate. You could also be without Miles Turner out there, who would be at a 24.2% usage rate without Tyrese Halliburton on the floor this season. But 535 minutes, they've been staggering quite a bit with Mathurin and Halliburton. So largest sample size, 30.7% usage there for Mathurin. Do you see any kind of a minutes bump? Because if he starts playing over 30 minutes a night, you want to be quick and often to the well on that one.
Yeah, I think you'll see a bump. He started the second half last game in place of James Johnson. I don't know. I assume they're going to start McConnell here in place of Halliburton. If Turner is out, maybe Mathurin ends up in the starting lineup as well. But either way, I think you're going to probably see a few more minutes just because they need more scoring. Obviously Halliburton's not the highest usage guy on this team, but he's a higher usage guy than McConnell. He's, a higher usage guy than Nembhard. I think it is likely you see a couple more minutes from Mathurin. And either way, just the fact that every minute he plays is going to be without Halliburton on the floor is going to make him look a little bit better as well. So at 4,800, he's pulling 27% ownership, shooting guard, small forward. I think that looks good. And then one other thing, just sort of to mention on Nembhard, because we spent a lot of times on the negatives, he's still cheap. Like, he's still a good value play. It's just that I do think keeping those concerns about McConnell in mind are important. That the minutes he plays with McConnell, he really doesn't see much of a bump, whereas McConnell's a 1 fantasy point per minute guy without Halliburton.
Yeah, McConnell, 43.3% assist rate without Halliburton on the floor. Nembhard, 27.4. I think it's just going to come down to how much they play on the floor together. I think they're both fantastic plays. It's just that Nembhard, I think, is going to come up a little bit more and going to be overowned. And I think I'm probably just making the case that I want to get to more McConnell and Mathurin than I do Nembhard.
Yeah. I think that's I think I get to those two. Like, I probably get to Nembhard too, but I think if I had to cut one of them out, it would be Nembhard. And that's assuming McConnell starts. If they were to start Nembhard, Mathurin. So if they were to, let's say Turner's in and they start Mathurin in place of Halliburton, then I'm going to prefer Nembhard to McConnell just because I assume he's playing way more minutes. But assuming that we get McConnell replacing Halliburton in the starting lineup, I'm going to prefer McConnell to Nembhard. And also, McConnell has played massive minutes as a starter in recent seasons when Halliburton's been out.
Yep. And he puts up random triple doubles and does the steal thing. And there's just a lot of ways for TJ McConnell to be useful on this kind of a slate. I feel pretty good about him. I feel really, really good about TJ McConnell. It's weird to feel more confident about him than Nemhard, but here we are. Miles Turner, if he does play, smash, absolute smash. He's already a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy. You take Halliburton off the floor, yay. The starting lineup could turn out 45,000 different ways because you have Aaron Nesmith also going to be questionable again. He was out on Wednesday. Lots of ways to be looking at this Pacers team as perhaps like the most important one on today's slate.
Yeah. Turner has played 143 minutes without Halliburton this year, 1.23 DraftKings points per minute. Usage rate gets up to 24%. Buddy Hield has a 21.5% usage rate, 1.13 DraftKings points per minute in 222 minutes without Halliburton. You should probably see increased playing time from Hield as well, just because you have so many minutes that you need to fill here. So he's going to look better. This team's just going to look really good. And like you said, it depends on exactly who is in or out. If Aaron Nesmith is out and O'Shea Brissett is back, then a $3,100 Brissett would look somewhat interesting. You could get Jalen Smith, in the starting lineup at 4K again. Don't know, which route they would go. Even Chris Duarte, I think, in large field tournaments potentially ends up being interesting. The more guys that are out, like if he ends up being the backup point guard here, that wouldn't really be surprising. And he's 3K flat, like he can play multiple positions. The more guys that get ruled out, the more likely it becomes that Duarte just ends up playing sort of minutes in place of everybody.
Yeah, it's flat 3K for Chris Duarte too, with the best positional eligibility you can have, shooting guard, small forward. So there you go. Useful stuff. I like that side note. I didn't even think about Duarte. But let's go to the Atlanta side. Again, Indiana, I knew they were going to take up a lot of our time this morning. I'm glad that we covered that in depth. Great job. And Okongwu on Atlanta pulling the most ownership. And I think it makes sense because you look at Jalen Johnson. That's kind of the guy that has been popping a lot in our boom bust tool leading up to lock at times. But that was when he was playing low 20s minutes. The last 15 minutes with Okongwu playing north of 30 now, the last two. If that's going to be the switch, if we're going to see Okongwu playing north of 30 minutes a night here, he's nearly a fantasy point per minute guy, 5,600. The price is starting to come down again. I'm going to want some kind of Atlanta exposure, and Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, can't even talk about him. We don't talk about Bruno. That was really bad. Okongwu, how do you feel about him on today's slate?
Yeah, it's a good price tag at 5,600. It's a good matchup. He started 13 games now this year. He's averaged 32.7 minutes per game, 0.88 DraftKings points per minute. You do see a bit of a drop in production for him when Trae Young is on the floor, which isn't really surprising. But at that price tag and given that playing time in a favorable matchup, he's still going to look good. 15% ownership at center on a 9-game slate probably means he's going to be a little bit over-owned in terms of optimal percentage versus ownership. But again, you're not just avoiding every single over-owned player because you would end up just making really shitty lineups probably. So it's just something to keep in mind that in an individual lineup, there's probably going to be quality pivots away from Okongwu at that ownership, but he does deserve it. He's just underpriced in a good spot, playing north of 30 minutes, averaging shy of a fantasy point per minute, but around 0.9 fantasy points per minute.
You're not going to do the Forsaken Jesse thing where it's like he's 15% owned, but Jalen Johnson's 0.3% owned. What is the field doing? Yeah,
well, he chopped the night slate last night, so I'll not make fun of him for a day, I guess.
I don't want to go in that Discord.
I'm just glad to know where all season long, I'll put 3% of my teams in the top 1% and finish 8th. I'm glad to know who gets first every time they make a good lineup.
Runs like a god. Dude runs like a god. It's truly unbelievable. At least his golf lineups from what I see this week suck. That makes me happy.
That's good. Yeah. No, I mean, you never see the guy at the top of the leaderboard unless he's first. I don't know how it works.
I mean, it's a Canadian thing. And it must be because he's such a good person on Twitter.
Yeah, that's got to be it.
Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, if you guys want to go to the ceilings there, have at. They're going to be low owned. There's a lot of better spots that you can probably get to on today's slate. Bogdanovich looks all right. I guess if DeAndre Hunter's 5,500, JK, LOL. John Collins, 6,800. It's a lot more fun paying 6K for him, 5,600 at times for him. Those days are gone. Anything else from Atlanta for you?
No, not really. I mean, it goes without saying that Trae Young has a massive ceiling. If you get there, great. DeJounte Murray's price tag jumped because of I don't really know why, because he was awful. But his price tag jumped. So even like the other day before Trae Young had gotten ruled out, we liked him at 8,200 as a contrarian play. Now at 8,800, I think it's even more difficult to get there. John Collins at 6,800, not getting backup center minutes. Like, you really need those for John Collins to ever be near 7K. And they have been going to Kaminsky. Now they have Derek Favors, who may or may not play today. So I think for me, it's pretty much a Kongwu, maybe get a little bit of Trae Young, and then move on.
Yeah, what? DeJounte Murray's never been a good shooter. Like, he's never been a good shooter. That was the wild thing about that chalk to me the other day. I ended up playing a ton of Jalen Brunson instead at like 7%, which was like my 1 point of deviation on the slate where I was coming from jury duty. So like, whatever, I didn't have that much volume, but like DeJounte Murray, just keep that in mind at the back of your head, where guys got like a 52% true shooting percentage, 49% effective field goal percentage. And that's kind of what he's done his entire career. So he's not Trae Young, and we care about offense in this whole DFS thing. DeJounte Murray, more of a good real life basketball player at times.
Also a very good fantasy player, though. Like, he
still totally can fill up
a ton of fantasy points without scoring a ton. 86
percentile assist rate, 24% in that direction under all circumstances, 88% steal rate, 2.3%. So like, he can still fill it up, but I'm just saying, like, more difficult for him to achieve like a ceiling where he goes out and, shoots 25 times.
Sure.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else from this game?
Nope.
Indiana, pay close attention, everybody. Just like you should pay close attention to the video description box below. You know why? Because we got a great thing going on. BetMGM, you get an amazing deal right now. If you guys are in a legal betting state, shout out to you in Ohio. I know that you guys are out there. Get yourself 2 months of Stokastic Platinum right now. No strings attached. By just signing up for BetMGM down there. You get a $1,000 bonus bet that you can get up to $1,000. And if that ends up losing, you're going to get that back in BetMGM credits. So check that out. But 2 free months of Stokastic, like, that's pretty impossible to beat. Take advantage of that. There's no question I can say the word free when it comes to our tools and content, because we're going to give you that for 2 months signing up at BetMGM. Look at all the great things we have. The boom bust tool. We have the NFL stuff coming up here this weekend. Looking very, very looking forward to this wild card weekend. 6-game slate that wraps around. Shout out to DK for doing an awesome job sizing and at least throwing out $100K to first tournament. You can throw some lineups in for the wraparound schedule. But Saturday to Monday, tons of showdown slates that you're going to want to have exposure to. So if you've been on the fence, if you've been thinking, hey, I should check out BetMGM, I should check out sports betting, we have great content over at OddsShopper for it. We've got Adam over there doing NBA Bet Pro videos, talking NBA bets every single day, the best bets at every single book. BetMGM is one of those. So take advantage. God, I hate that picture so much. Such a tool. But check out all the great offerings that we have here at Stokastic for 2 months free when you sign up at BetMGM. Thank you for all of you guys who have taken advantage of that already. But if you're on the fence, now is the time. NFL, biggest weekend of NFL that you're going to have the rest of the way. This is the time to be signing up. We move along to New Orleans, -5 at Detroit, 234 total here in this one. Same situation as always, business as usual. No Zion, no Brandon Ingram. Herbert Jones questionable. Again, round 2, the sequel. Him being out last time definitely bolstered a couple of guys, but we're starting to see prices trend up. Trey Murphy is going to end my life here very, very shortly. He just wants me to go busto, and I get it. CJ McCollum is apparently going to just play a bazillion minutes and go for 50 every single night. And then Jonas Valanciunas, after the first game back for Larry Nance, was just fine. They ended up closing that one. Larry Nance just chops completely into his minutes, even though J-Val was about the only thing going right offensively for them against Boston. I'm taking crazy pills. I hate this New Orleans team. I'm sick of this situation. Adam, what do you see that stands out there? Because I just am over it.
Well, I don't know if you would notice this. Did you notice that neither one of Joval or Nance closed that game?
Oh, well, I mean, it got a little bit wonky there for a second.
I mean, but like before garbage time even.
Right. No, I did not see that.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a weird lineup in general, but the closing lineup for the final, like, actual competitive minutes was CJ McCollum, Najee Marshall, Trey Murphy, Devontae Graham, and Jackson Hayes. Not surprisingly, there ended up being garbage time.
Yeah. Jackson Hayes, it turned and bled into garbage time. I see. That's nice.
Yeah.
That's well done New Orleans, you guys are the worst lately.
But yeah, I mean, as far as Joval goes, it just becomes tricky because we've seen a few games this year where Larry Nance plays alongside him. And when that happens, it means you can get 28, 29 minutes from Joval while also getting 24, 25 from Nance. But most of the time, they haven't wanted to do that. We saw them not do it, again, last game. And they have enough wings where they don't have to. Even with Herb Jones out last game, they didn't need to. They just have enough other wings that they can play. So I think it's difficult to, project that to happen. And as a result, you kind of end up just projecting like 25 minutes for Joval, 23 for Nance, or 24, 24, something in there. And it makes it, difficult to rely on them. Joval pulling 18% ownership right now. It's a very appealing spot against Detroit, but at that ownership, it concerns me. He's the kind of guy where, if he gets down to, 4 or 5% owned, then I'm like, all right, well, Joval's a really good fantasy producer when he's out there. I'm fine rolling the dice and just hoping I somehow get that 28-minute Joval game at no ownership. But if nearly 1/5 of the field is going to be counting on that game, I probably just, look elsewhere and hope that he doesn't go nuts. He is nearly a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy without Zion or Ingram on the floor this year. So there is plenty of upside at his price, even with the minutes volatility. But if the ownership's going to be there, it just scares me a little bit. CJ McCollum's salaries come up. He's 8% owned. You know the type of ceiling you're getting from him. The issue with the rising salary, though, is he's just starting to get into the same price range as other guards who produce as much, if not more, fantasy points per minute. Overall this year, without Zion or Ingram on the floor, 1.3 DraftKings points per minute, 31.5% usage rate, 30.5% assist percentage. Still certainly plenty of upside for him, but getting much closer to correctly priced now.
I just am over this basketball team. Dyson Daniels started last time out. He's 3,400, played 25 minutes there. It could very easily turn into more Jose Alvarado. He's actually pulling a little bit of ownership right now, projecting out decent at around 5% ownership, but 4,200 probably can find some better stuff on this slate if he shows up in a lineup or two, whatever. But yeah, for me, the Najee Marshall and Jonas Valanciunas thing is a little out of control today. Completely on board with everything you said about J-Val. So surely he's going to go off at 18% and put up 50.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm with you on Najee too. Like, he's the best fantasy producer out of the wings. He's averaged 0.92 DraftKings points per minute without Zion or Ingram, compared to 0.73 from your boy Trey Murphy and 0.77 from Herb Jones. He's also playing his way into more minutes recently. He got 37 minutes last game and didn't even play garbage time. I don't think you project that many minutes, but I'm pretty comfortable going to like 34 minutes on Najee. So the rising price tag is deserved just based on what we've seen. But at the same time, when you make him 5,800 and you have Herbert Jones, assuming he plays at 4,700, you have Murphy at 5K, both guys sub 1%. At the very least, that's a spot where in a given lineup, you could say like, all right, I have a bunch of popular players. I need one of these wings. I'm going to just go to a Trey Murphy or Herb Jones and hope that, they're going to beat Najee Marshall more than 1 in 15 times. But if ownership in the lineup you're building isn't a consideration because you already have, a Trey Young or something like that, then Najee Marshall, I think, is still the preferred option.
Yeah, and I got the Trey Murphy game, and it didn't matter. I couldn't celebrate because Jonas Valanciunas played a grand total of 23 minutes. Thanks, everybody. What just donkey. Oh, we got some news, and it actually applies to this. I don't know how you sign up for getting that at 10:30 Eastern time, 7:30 Pacific time out here for me, but we just got timely news. Corey Joseph now listed out. Okay, so let me take that out because that's a guy for a couple minutes, like 4 minutes, whatever. It's just more of like the timing of it is pretty ironic. The main thing is Isaiah Stewart from this basketball team. He is going to be questionable. Again, we don't have that injury report and you're going to be waiting on it, but I would assume he's going to enter questionable. He was the surprise scratch, then sat out against Minnesota. Didn't matter. Everybody on Detroit smashed for Minnesota. If he's going to be out again, are we going back to the well on everybody named Jaden Ivey, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Killian Hayes?
If Stewart's out, yeah, like I'm still going to like these Detroit guys. Bojan being back last game, in theory, would cut into, Ivy and Hayes' production a bit. It didn't. They smashed, or at least Ivy did. I don't remember what Hayes did, but
they all smashed against Minnesota.
Yeah, but they're still very reasonably priced here. 115 implied total for Detroit, certainly nice. $5,400 price tag on Jaden Ivey is going to look pretty good. Killian Hayes at 5,900 playing huge minutes. He played 34 again last game. You got 40 from Jaden Ivey, which I don't know what to make of that because I've been playing Jaden Ivey too much as it is already this season, even projecting him for like 28 minutes, even though I haven't understood why he's only playing 28 minutes. If just knowing now that there's at least some chance he plays bigger minutes, that's going to make him look even better. I'll still probably project around 28 minutes, but he'll look pretty good. Boyan came back, played 32 minutes. He's 6,400, small forward, power forward eligible. So, a high upside guy you can get into your lineups. If Stewart's out, you're probably getting more playing time for Sadiq Bey at 4,800 as well. Nerlens Noel only played 22 minutes last game, which was annoying because the first game that he started, I had gone ahead and projected him for like 28 because they just didn't have other centers and I didn't know what they were going to do, but I wasn't very comfortable with it. Then he played 16 minutes in the first half and just didn't play garbage time down the stretch. So I ended up playing a good amount of him last slate. He did fine. He scored 24 fantasy points, but that doesn't usually get it done at center when you have a bunch of guys going for 50.
He beat Orlando Robinson.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, if he starts, I would assume he's playing like 22 minutes. That makes more sense just based on who he is. And what we saw last game as well. So at 3,800, if Stewart is out, like Noel's going to project as a reasonable value, but the opportunity cost is still going to make him look probably not that appealing.
Yeah, I'd probably bet and play more Detroit pieces than any basketball team that's this bad. It's just wild how much of them I get to. The Jaden Ivey thing, 40 minutes on a back-to-back is still so wild to me. Yeah. You just started playing well, and I guess it's like a build confidence in the young Purdue rookie and just keep it going. Killian Hayes was great. Bojan Bogdanovic has been great all season long, even though he's on a terrible, no good, very bad basketball team. Sadiq Bey, if he shows up in some lineups sub 5K, just understand that that's going to burn you more times than it doesn't. But he played 38 minutes last time out. Detroit, without Isaiah Stewart, everybody's pretty interesting. Isaiah Stewart himself, 5,300. That would be a piece to definitely get to.
Yeah, he's the highest on guy on DraftKings from Detroit.
Oh, yeah, I see that now. I should probably look at that. Let's jump over to the that covers this one, doesn't it?
I don't know, man. You're the host. Yes, it does. This is why I went to Georgia. We got 3 games without awkward silence.
Golden State minus 8.5, San Antonio 244. They're playing in the Alamo Dome today. Alamo Dome, 65,000 people there to go watch a massacre. That'll be fun. And now that I said that, of course, San Antonio is going to win because, right, the NBA's rigged. That's what the YouTube comments have taught me on my betting videos. It's not true. But either way, Golden State, probably the most unappealing basketball team on this slate to me. You did see 31 minutes from Steph Curry right out of the gate. Yay, that bodes well for them, but I don't know how you land on any piece of this game in any meaningful way.
I mean, it should be a very high-scoring game. The problem is just that Golden State is so expensive because of Steph being out. I don't want to pay $8,200 for Jordan Poole with Steph in. I don't particularly want to pay $7,700 for Clay, although his usage rate didn't really jump that much with Steph out because Jordan Poole just took all the shots. But that's still, a very healthy price tag on him. Wiggins at 6,600 did play 29 minutes last game, so I think there's a decent chance that he just gets back to his normal low 30s here, but doesn't matter all that much. Draymond at 6,300, sure, he should play 32 to 34 minutes, but you're probably just going to find better options on a 9-gamer. So it kind of sucks because, this team has a 126 implied total. They're in a great spot against San Antonio. Steph might be my favorite play from this team, and I don't really have a lot of confidence there either.
I mean, it's just like a hot hand approach. If he gets those minutes to 35, 36, I don't think it's out of the question. 31 was surprising for me for the first game in almost a month.
I projected him for 32.
Yeah. In
the game the other day. Today, I'll
got it.
35, 36.
Well, look at you. You're smarter than me.
Yeah, well, the result was that I was 2x the field on the night slate, and he missed every shot he took.
Yeah, that was bad. Well, I mean, Phoenix, they were playing a juggernaut as a 14-point favorite.
Yeah.
So dumb.
But really, looking at this team, the most correctly priced guys are probably Steph and Draymond.
Yeah. And Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah, and Wiggins.
So weird. It's just an unappealing basketball team to get to. And a 244 total is probably the largest total we've had in a very, very long time, not named Sacramento.
Yeah. I think I'm kind of talking myself into some stuff.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Let's go to San Antonio before you lose your mind. Keldon Johnson, 25% ownership. He's the guy pulling by far the most in this game. Trey Jones. Who? Trey Jones. Devin Vassell being out, definitely going to bolster some of that going forward. Jakob Poeltl, they've got him on bubble wrap because, again, they don't want him to get hurt before they trade him. Why wouldn't you trade him here at the deadline? That's going to happen. But Keldon Johnson, Trey Jones. If you made me roster one, I think I'm going the Trey Jones side of it. But Keldon Johnson at small forward, I think it makes sense. He's fine. I'm never that enthusiastic to play gold medalist Keldon Johnson. What stands out to you from the Spurs side?
The ownership for Keldon Johnson stands out. He's pulling 25% on DraftKings. He's a good play. He's small forward eligible, so you get a relatively weak position. He's got about a 31% usage rate without Devin Vassell on the floor this year. So I agree. Keldon Johnson looks good. Probably a little bit more ownership than he deserves, but again, that all that means is that there's probably going to be positive pivots away from him if you need it. In a lot of lineups, it doesn't really matter what his ownership is because you already have low-owned guys, and he's just going to project as a very good option. Played 35 and a half minutes last game. Typically project him around 34. Good fantasy point per minute guy. 1.03 DraftKings points per minute overall this year without Vassell on the floor. 1.1 DraftKings points per minute, 31% usage, like I mentioned. So he looks good. Trey Jones, 1.07 DraftKings points per minute without Vassell on the floor. He's pulling 9%. Nobody else here is getting ownership. The only other guy that I would add is Jakob Poeltl at 6,300. He's somebody that I just seemingly get to over the field pretty much every slate when he's low owned. He plays around 26 minutes. Sometimes you get a little bit more. He's averaged 1.3 DraftKings points per minute without Vassell on the floor this year. If you put Keldon Johnson on and take Vassell off, Poeltl is still at 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. He's, I think, a pretty good option at 6,300 that's going a bit overlooked.
Yeah. Back then, Pop didn't want him. Now he's hot. Pop's all in on him. Trey Jones. Jakob Poeltl, 1.3. Yeah. I never get to Jakob Poeltl, mainly because I don't want to play centers that can only play 26 minutes.
He can play more, though.
I know he can, but he just never does.
No, I mean, he has recently been playing more.
Okay. One game 32 in his last 5. Good job.
He had a 29 and a 27, too.
26, 26, 26, 20. You're right. 4 of his last 5, he's not exceeded 26 minutes, but sure, he's playing 30 every game now.
I mean, I project him for 26, but
that's fair.
Going back.
Yeah, range of outcomes. Right.
Yeah, you just read those last 5. The ones before, 30, 29, 26.
Doesn't fit into my narrative. I can't do it.
I
got a Sean Viet.
Yeah.
Doesn't fit my narrative.
So, yeah, that, but that's why I'm comfortable projecting 26. If he was never playing more than 26, I would just be going 24. But since he does have those other games, I'm comfortable going to 26, and it just makes him show up.
I love you. Don't hurt me. Anything else from this one?
No.
Okay, see, Chicago. So weird to just gloss over a 244 total, but that's just the way that it projects out. It's just not all that appealing outside. And I don't want to play 25% Keldon Johnson. Friends, don't let friends play 25% Keldon Johnson on a 9-game slate.
For the record, I did not gloss. I like several parts of this game.
I stay glossing in my candy pane, rolling tank, sipping drink on the 84 swing. Yeah, he's going. He got coffee at 7:41 a.m., baby. Oklahoma City, Chicago. Chicago's 4-point favorites, 234.5 total. We've got Josh Giddey and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander just absolutely torching human beings. I don't know, beating Philadelphia straight up by a lot as 10-point favorites. That would have been fun, but Josh Giddey, pretty absurd what we're seeing of late from him. I can't imagine Sam Presti's all that stoked with OKC playing well. Don't be surprised if something completely random happens out of the middle of the stratosphere today with Oklahoma City. I think that's a caveat you should throw out there every single day. But as it stands right now, Giddey, SGA, the only guys pulling any kind of ownership, the only guys I have any interest in. Who do you like more on today's slate? I mean,
SGA always looks great. He's pulling 12% ownership. This goes back to when I said I was talking myself into Steph. It's actually kind of easy to get to this price range today. You don't have quite the same, you don't have Luka, I guess is the big thing.
That's true.
Yeah, so like you can actually play 10K guards without having to worry about the guy projected for 70 for 2K more. You don't have Luka, you don't have Giannis, you do have Jokic, but other than that, you don't have Embiid. So it just makes it a little bit easier to get to this price range. And so SGA is actually getting some ownership. It's a good spot. He's been the one guy this year they haven't screwed with his minutes so far. You got him, occasionally you'll get him not playing in a game, but when he's played, he's gotten his full run. He's averaged about 36 minutes per game over his last 10, played 35 yesterday. He's going to look good here. I do think the 11 or 12% ownership coming to SGA compared to 2 for Curry is a little bit too big of a gap, but they're both just, I think, good plays. And getting to SGA at 10-2 certainly going to be a good idea. He's averaged about 1.4 DraftKings points per minute this year. Josh Giddey, coming off of a game where he played 38 minutes, I typically project him around 32. He's averaged around 31 or 32 over his last 10, but 1.14 DraftKings points per minute this year. He is shooting a bit better, especially recently. And, I was talking about it yesterday. I don't know what to make of that because he's not supposed to be a good shooter. He wasn't supposed to develop into one, at least quickly. But at the same time, he's a very young player. He could just be getting better. But at his price and in 32 minutes or so, he's going to look like a decent option anyway. If this shooting is real, he's just even more underpriced. But 7K for him, pulling 14% ownership, no real issues with that. Beyond him, you get the normal OKC bullshit, like Lou Dort's 4,900. If he randomly ends up in a lineup here or there, fine. Yeah. He averages around 30 minutes, played 38 yesterday for whatever reason. But sorry, Giddey played 36 yesterday. Dort played 38. Yeah. But yeah, you're going to get those random games from Dort, but normally you're getting around 30 minutes. Jalen Williams, not the center. Point guard, small forward eligible somehow. He's 5K, had a solid game yesterday. He's typically playing around 30 minutes. I typically don't get to him. It's pretty much SGA and Giddey would be the guys that I intentionally play in lineups today. And then Dort sort of accidentally ends up there sometimes.
Yeah, my buddy was texting me. He's like, you got to turn it on. You got to turn on Lou Dort guarding James Harden. I'm like, isn't James Harden just torching Lou Dort and everybody else sucks? Because that's what it seemed like yesterday, but just me.
I don't know that Harden, I didn't watch the game. I just remember kind of seeing Harden's stat line. I know he had 1 million assists, so I don't know that he was actually torching Dort.
Okay. Well, I just wasn't going to turn on an Oklahoma City, Philadelphia basketball.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
I refused. Let's go to the Chicago side. Oh, last thing about OKC. Do we maybe get a Kenrich Williams random start here, or do you think just because it's Vooch on the other side, they just stay with a big?
I have no idea.
Okay, cool. Good talk.
The one thing I will say is if they start Jalen Williams, the center, he is actually interesting at 3K. He only played 18 minutes yesterday. That was a game where he was in massive foul trouble, though. And he's just a good enough fantasy producer when he's on the floor. 0.9 DraftKings points per minute this year. If they go to anybody else, I end up not really being interested. If they go to Omar Rui, he's 0.8 DraftKings points per minute, but they also just haven't shown the same willingness to play him minutes like they occasionally do with Jalen Williams. If they went to Muscala, he's 0.94 DraftKings points per minute, so I guess he would be mildly interesting. If they go to Kenrich Williams at 4,100, I probably will just avoid that. Oh, and we got Darius Bazley back in the rotation yesterday. That was
sure did
going to happen eventually. I don't know if you had seen it. I'd mentioned it on a show the other day, but a reporter asked,
watch your shows.
You do because you are constantly in chat.
No, I'm kidding. I watched the deeper dive, the tail end. I tried to keep a straight face for it. I couldn't do it.
One of the reporters had asked Mark Daigneault the other day about Darius Bazley not being in the rotation, and Daigneault's answer was just so peak OKC this year. He's pretty much just he just hasn't been one of the guys that we're throwing out there right now. We've just been throwing all this other stuff at the wall, and he's not part of it. But he'll be back. He knows that, and it's just we're just gonna get a random Darius Bazley game. Played 14 minutes. I assume he'll play some minutes today. It doesn't matter for DFS. Just another, I guess, random guy that could start at center that probably won't.
There you go. Just wanted to point it out. Not that you're not really interested, but now you're interested. But is it like that awkward ass out hug thing? Wedding Crashers. It's fine. Don't mind me. DeMar DeRozan doubtful. That seems to matter for DFS purposes. We should probably talk on that because Vooch, Levine, very popular again. More than understandable. Even as those prices come up, we're now looking at a Zach LaVine at 9,200 on DraftKings. And I'm more than happy to pay it. He was 7,300 3 games ago, but it's just such a huge bump without DeMar DeRozan. I don't see how you get away from getting to some. He shoots 48 threes a game. That's pretty useful as well. 40 minutes a night. Apparently, the injury concerns are a thing of the past. How do Vooch and Levine look for you tonight?
They look great. The playing time for Levine is big, because I think it's obvious that you're going to see his production go up. He's at 1.2 DraftKings points per minute without DeRozan in 440 minutes, 32.3% usage rate. But the playing time should go up as well. You're taking somebody that has played 35, 36 minutes for most of the year, and it's very reasonable now to expect 37, 38, played 41 last game, like you said. So you're getting increased playing time on top of increased production. It still looks good. Obviously the price tag did come up and he's still pulling a lot of ownership, but happy to get to Levine, happy to get to Vooch at 8,500. This year, Vooch has played only 207 minutes without DeRozan on the floor, but 1.33 DraftKings points per minute, 22.5% usage rate. He played 39 minutes last game. I'm not reading into that. I don't think that's necessarily a direct result of DeRozan being out, but it certainly could be. You don't want minutes where you have neither of Levine or Vooch on the floor, or at least you want to minimize those. And without DeRozan, even when you just have Levine out there, if Vooch isn't out there, you're really missing another big offensive piece. So maybe you do just continue to see more playing time from Vooch without DeRozan. I'll probably project him around 35 minutes here, but he certainly could play more. One way or the other, he's going to look very good.
Kobe White was really, really cheap last late 3,300. Pulled no ownership, which is kind of wild to me. Did you find that to be weird?
Yeah, he had been projected for ownership throughout the day, and then I don't remember if there was just news that changed or something, but I was 3%. Surprised when I saw. Yeah, because I think he was 5% owned, and I had 10, and I was surprised when I saw that I was over the field.
Yeah, it was a guy that I wasn't trying to make any kind of a stand to be over. I was like, oh, I'll get to a little bit, and then nobody played him, so that was pretty fascinating to me. Wish I had more. That would have been all right. He didn't smash 24.5, but I just thought at that ownership, it was pretty ridiculous. Now he's pulling 13.4% ownership at an increased tag. Kind of those situations. Alex Caruso got ruled in. Maybe people thought that was a little weird, but I didn't think anything of it. Alex Caruso did get the start there. I think between the two, all things being equal, identical fantasy point per minute rates, I'll probably take the guy starting in Caruso, who's pulling just slightly less ownership. But do you have any kind of a lean on one of the two?
I actually lean towards Caruso because
that's who I leaned with.
Yeah. So one, he's starting. So I just feel a little bit better about his minutes. I think it's likely you get around 28 minutes from both him and White, but at similar ownership, I'm just going to feel a little bit better about the minutes. The other thing though, without DeRozan on the floor this year, 0.8 DraftKings points per minute for Caruso, 0.7 for Kobe White. Zach LaVine is still playing almost the entire game, and Kobe White is a non-factor when he plays with Zach LaVine typically. It's kind of like we were talking about with Nembhard and any other point guard. The rates just disappear, and so you can still get those random games. He's 3,800. If he plays 28 minutes, he's going to project reasonably well, but it would be different, I think, if LaVine were playing fewer minutes or LaVine were out. As is, I just lean towards the cheaper Caruso, who's actually been the better point per minute guy and is also starting.
Is there an NFL show starting up at 8? Oh, there is. Holy crap. Okay. I thought we were starting 15 minutes early. We're going to get ourselves flying. No doubt about it. But Prize Picks. Oh, first of all, hit the like button. Everybody's got to smash the like button for us. We got 4 games to go. This Phoenix one is going to take a majority of these next 10 minutes. We'll maybe go a minute or two over here, but tournament strategy show, Neil and Alex, that is going to be coming up. Prize Picks. Sign up now. Take advantage of all the great stuff we have over there. Promo code Stokastic gets you $100 first match deposit bonus. I love playing over there. I'm posting tickets all the time. It's such a great site. You don't have to think about odds. You don't have to think about anything. Think about expected win percentage. You have winners or you have losers. That's all you're worried about. The payout structures are identical no matter what it is. You have power plays. You can 3x your money. So, basically, double 2xing in reality there. You can go up to 25x your money. That is pretty cool stuff. But so many great offerings over at Prize Picks. We're putting player props together. Try to jump in early because some of these fantasy score Prize Picks have been very, very low from the onset. You want to take advantage. You need to take advantage of all of those great offerings over at Prize Picks. Again, in the video description box below, sign up using promo code Stokastic and get yourself $100 first match deposit bonus. Pretty cool stuff. Alrighty. Phoenix, my dear sweet God, here we are. Let's party with this one. Phoenix taking on my Minnesota Timberwolves, and where do you want to start? Because this is just the same shit show we've seen for however long. We're still going to be waiting on the opportunity for. Ayton's officially out. Is Aiden officially out?
He's questionable.
Yeah, I was going to say he's questionable. We got a 0 next to him in the projections, so I just wanted to double check that. But assuming that he is out, I mean, we just have so many pieces to talk about from this one. Dwayne Washington up to 5K still looks good. Dario Saric, Mikal Bridges. Who stands out to you on the Phoenix end?
Saric at 4,400 still is going to look pretty good. Dwayne Washington at 5K is going to be very risky. I'm just not sold on his playing time at all. Monty Williams doesn't trust his decision-making. They have Saban Lee as a secondary ball handler now. They gave him a bunch of run in the fourth quarter. So I think the minutes can be there for him going forward, potentially. Washington still gives you a very high ceiling because of his ability to score. But if he's going to be 22% owned at 5K, I'll probably just come in under the field again. I think there's so many red flags on him. Mikal Bridges should play a ton of minutes at 6,600. What he does with those is anybody's guess. I think it's actually a really risky team. If Ayton is in particular, because he also, is a high usage guy, so he's going to kind of take away from other starters. But if Ayton's out, I like Saric. Washington and Bridges both look fine. But again, I'm just really scared of Dwayne Washington's minutes because Monty Williams just doesn't trust him, especially on the stretch.
Josh Okogie, revenge spot, baby. 11.2%. Most positively leveraged player early on. Again, very, very early, but boom, bust tool. Josh Okogie, Dario Saric, two guys that would really, really stand out. In fact, Dario, 28.3% optimal percentage, second highest on this slate at 4,400. That is pretty wild to be looking at. I think they're all pieces you can get to. But on the Minnesota side, you could be looking at some major, major value too. Anthony Edwards, it says considered a question mark. I don't know what that all means here, Basil, but Rudy Gobert, D'Angelo Russell with both. Yeah, D'Angelo Russell specifically would look great. Kyle Anderson, questionable. Then it becomes Jaden McDaniels. Could be great. Could be awful. Not really sure what to do. What stands out to you from Minnesota?
Gobert at 7,400 looks like just another good center option. If Edwards is in at 8,900, that's a pretty nice price tag. Certainly a viable pivot away from somebody like Zach LaVine if you wanted to go that route. Edwards pulling 10% ownership compared to LaVine's 23. LaVine certainly projects better, but you know the type of upside that Edwards gives you. He's going to beat LaVine a pretty high percentage of the time. D'Angelo Russell at 7,200 looks pretty good at 6% owned. If Edwards is out, Russell's going to look better.
This is true. I literally have nothing else from this game because it just depends on how this injury news breaks down.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. We go to Orlando and Utah here. This is probably the least appealing game of the three that we have left here. Markelle Fultz pulling a little bit of ownership. We're talking Utah 6-point favorites, 5.5, depending on what book you're looking at, 233.5. Fultz, Walker Kessler did start last game, so that's something to keep considered. He had been not starting there for a nice streak of time. They realize that they continue to get murdered on the interior. If you look at dunks and threes, you look at anything there. They are not very good at containing centers. That's going to happen when you have an undersized guy like Jared Vanderbilt and Kelly Olynyk running your interior, even despite as good of a rebounder as Vanderbilt can be from time to time. But anything on Orlando that stands out to you?
The minutes they played last game stands out. Somehow with this team getting healthier, they just condensed minutes. Bol still did not play, even though he was available. Yeah. But you got 38 minutes from Banchero, you got 37 from Fultz, you got 35 from Franz, you got 31 from Wendell Carter Jr. I'm not going crazy with their minutes projections here because I don't trust this team's rotations at all, but it does make me feel a little bit better about, just going to 30 on Fultz, 34 on Wagner, 34, 35 on Banchero. And it just makes them look like decent tournament plays. Nobody's really pulling ownership, but Fultz is 6,100, getting 8%. Banchero pulling 6% at 8,300. I think they both look fine. Wendell Carter Jr., certainly a viable center pivot away from some of these other, more popular centers. He's only getting 3%. So yeah, I think it's just kind of an interesting tournament team in an appealing matchup where nobody stands out. Nobody looks like they're mispriced, but there's still a pretty good chance that one of these guys ends up having a really big game here.
Do you feel the same way about the Utah side?
Yeah, pretty much identical. Walker Kessler coming in at 5K. He started last game, like you said. They also moved Malik Beasley into the starting lineup. Vanderbilt went to the bench. We'll have to keep an eye on that starting lineup today. Colin Sexton also is expected back, which cuts into that rotation a little bit, but shouldn't have too much of an impact. I think that the pricing here is a little bit less favorable than Orlando, though. For example, 9,800 on Lauri Markkanen. The guy's been fantastic this year. I get it, but that's SGA territory. It's Trae Young territory. I'm not paying that for Lauri Markkanen. So I think this team's a little bit more difficult to get to than Orlando.
Denver Clippers. We've got a 2-point total, 2-point spread here. Clippers 225 total, pretty low total, but that's going to happen. Not because Denver's good defensively or anything. The Clippers, massive amount of their games going under at home. There's nothing to read from that. Just a tidbit that I thought was interesting. Nikola Jokic, that's the fun one to be looking at. 1.74 fantasy points per minute on the old DK.com. That seems like it's pretty good, Adam.
Yeah, it's obvious. It's not bad. The only problem with Jokic, as usual, is that he's a center, so there is opportunity cost, but it should be easier to get to him today because, again, he's kind of the only true pay-up option. You don't have Giannis, you don't have Doncic, so you don't have Embiid competing with Jokic either. So certainly happy to get there where I can. To me, though, the most interesting tournament parts from this team are not Jokic. It's Jamal Murray at 6,700. He continues to have his minutes with Jokic staggered, which is very, very good for Jamal Murray's fantasy production. He was disappointing last game, but he didn't get full run because he rolled his ankle as soon as the fourth quarter started. Right when he was going to get minutes without Jokic out there, he got hurt. It was not good for me. But Michael Malone said that he's going to play today or expected to play today. And he's giving you 35, 36 minutes in competitive games, playing every minute Jokic isn't on the floor. The ownership has not adjusted to that. Jamal Murray looks very good. And then Michael Porter Jr. somehow down to $5,200. I get his playing time is somewhat volatile, but he's typically going to give you around 30 minutes. And we just lost 10% of his salary without gaining anything in terms of ownership. So I think Michael Porter Jr. is interesting as well.
If we had more time, I would absolutely just create so much pain for the people who thought Zubats was a bad play last slate. I just want to throw up and I just hate people. They're so dumb. But 5,100 for him. He played 37 minutes the last time. Oh, but did you know against Dallas, he doesn't play very many minutes and that Luka Doncic puts him in the pick and roll and blends him, puts him in a blender. It's what I just can't even. But Robert Covington did play a lot more minutes than what we expected. They ended up going to that small ball lineup. Don't think you can do that going up against Jokic, and yet Covington, 3,300, pulling the most ownership on this entire team. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, Adam.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't trust it at all. Like it's one of those spots where if you told me Covington was going to be 2% owned, I'd say, all right, maybe they're going to go to that rotation more and it's interesting. But if he's going to be 12% owned, like I don't think it's a given that he has any real role other than being the backup center. I don't think that it, like barring foul trouble, I don't think Zubats is just getting benched, so I not really interested in Covington at ownership. Terrence Mann at 4,300 looks fine, assuming he continues to start. Zubats at 5,100, 7% owned. As usual, I like him in tournaments.
Me too.
If he avoids foul trouble, he should play a bunch of minutes here. Kawhi's up to 9,900, which is a hell of a price tag for him. So he's not getting much ownership. I'm probably just playing Zubats, Mann, and moving on.
That's exactly what I'm doing. Guys, hit that like button. I need that like button so badly. For Mike Lawrence, for Adam, for myself, doing the 2-minute drill. We go to Houston, Sacramento. We're going to round this puppy out very, very in short order. I don't know what I was trying to say there, but Jalen Green pulling the most ownership there on the Houston side, going up against Sacramento, 10-point total. They're just running this entire game back. That is always kind of nice because maybe teams make adjustments, but for the most part, you're going to see a lot of the same shit you saw last time. Eric Gordon, 3,900. I don't know why. He doesn't really do anything outside of shoot the ball, and maybe he just gets hot and whatever else. But if you like 25 fantasy points, Eric Gordon's the guy for you. Jalen Green, though, definitely my favorite play on this side of it. Alperen Sengun as well, just another center in the bucket. What stands out to you from Houston?
Jalen Green looks really good. 33.5% usage rate without Kevin Porter Jr. this year. 1.04 DraftKings points per minute. The biggest, probably the most surprising thing that I've seen in a while, because I had no idea, 270 minutes for Eric Gordon this year without Kevin Porter Jr. 0.97 DraftKings points per minute, 26% usage rate.
What?
That is not something I expected to see. 51 of those minutes have been with Jalen Green on the floor. The usage rate there is 20.1%, so that makes more sense. But yeah, I mean, Porter being out does make Eric Gordon look a bit better at 3,900. KJ Martin should start at 3,800. Yep. He's pulling 12% ownership. That makes sense. Sengun at 6,900 has been playing more minutes recently when he avoids foul trouble. Bruno Fernando hasn't been in the rotation except for when Sengun's in foul trouble. So that's another interesting spot where Sengun's only getting 9% ownership. Obviously, he can get in foul trouble here against Sabonis, but I think he's going a little bit under owned for Houston's most recent rotations. And then also not having Kevin Porter Jr. on the floor. Sengun, 1.3 DraftKings points per minute without Porter this year. Pretty much all the starters. Jabari Smith sucks, but also 0.96 DraftKings points per minute without Porter this year. So, and not getting any ownership. I love Houston here.
Eric just graduated the school of Lofty. Lofty would just skip entire games. I remember that once upon a time. That was my favorite. When he was just like, oh, we don't have time. Do you have anything from the sun? You're like, no, I don't. Yeah. I'm at least covering them for you guys. Well, no, I love Lofty, of course. I love everybody here. Got to get you guys to Neil and Alex here, though. We rounded out. Domantas Sabonis, 10-6. Wild that he's pulling as much ownership as he is, but I think it's warranted. That's what happens when you play Houston. That's what happens when you're Domantas Sabonis. That's what happens with the Sacramento basketball team. Him and Fox, you can play them basically whenever you want. There's going to be a massive ceiling of raw points attached to them. Anything else stand out to you besides those two?
No, I mean, those two are pretty self-explanatory. They look great. The rest of the team, though, in tournaments, I'm still interested. Like, Keegan Murray isn't very good fantasy-wise, but he's been playing more minutes. He's only 4,600 and unowned. Harrison Barnes pulling 3% ownership at 5,700. We've seen very similar forwards pulling more ownership than that. So I think he's interesting. We have the Q tag on Kevin Huerter. If he's out, you probably get a Terrence Davis start. He should play around 22 minutes or so at 3,200. He's a good enough fantasy producer that makes him look good, especially with shooting guard and small forward eligibility. Malik Monk at 4,500, 3% owned. I will take that in tournaments. I love guys like that are, capable of getting hot. And when they do get hot, they just take more shots and play more minutes. And it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy with guys like that. Love them when they're low owned. So I'm just very high on this game again, and the field mostly isn't.
All right. Look at that. We got Mike Lawrence firing it up in the chat for you guys. NFL Playoff Wildcard Weekend show coming up next. Adam, any final words for the people as we get out of here?
No.
Yeah, to think about that. It was a fun show. Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Thank you.
We're just going to get out of here. Shout out to Prize Picks. Go sign up. $100 first match deposit bonus in the video description box below. He's Adam. He's got a sweatshirt that is not appropriate for this time of year. I'm Eric. I don't know. I look worse between the two of us. Not a normal thing. Thanks, Mike. We'll see you guys later.